Ever wonder how human civilization started? The beginning of human civilization was not unearthed till the 19th century. And believe it or not, this civilization was started by people who mysteriously appeared and settled onto fertile land. Some even say they came from the sea. Welcome to Intrigued Mind, and join us in understanding the rise and fall of one of the first civilizations in history, the Sumerians. Thousands of years of writing have mentioned Mesopotamia, which is formed from the ancient words meso, meaning middle of, and potamus, meaning river. This valley lay between the two ancient rivers Tigris and Euphrates that lie in southern Babylonia, which is modern-day Iraq. But before this was a fertile area where the earliest societies began, it was an arid land that seemed impossible to give rise to any life at all. The geography was a product of the weathering of mountains and the end of the Ice Age that brought about the creation of rivers in arid lands. Silt and particles from high-altitude areas were brought down to the arid regions, which played a significant role in the formation of fertile soil that made it possible for these nomads to settle. The nomads that settled here learned a little technique called irrigation. They found out that the soil was more bountiful near the river, so they decided to dig the ground and make canals so that the river could reach inland, so they could grow more crops, which encouraged them to stay and build the land up. Aside from that, the weather started to become more stable, which also encouraged nomads to start settling at the time. This was around the 4th millennium BCE, way before any great civilization arose. But it is important to note that during this time, there was also progress occurring in faraway regions, such as with Native Americans in the West or with ancient Chinese in the Far East. But even if we know about Mesopotamia's existence, who discovered the Sumerians in the first place? History cannot really pinpoint the discovery of this civilization to anyone, since there have been multiple accounts about a Spanish rabbi coming across the ruins of this place between the years 1160 and 1173 CE. But the credit for rediscovery of the ruins goes to the Pietro della Valle, an Italian traveler who noticed a large rectangular tower in the desert, which was an ancient ziggurat of the Sumerians. Note that this was in the 15th century CE. It was not until the 19th century CE when excavations would begin, and we would find out more about the Sumerian culture that began to understand the incredible influence in the history of civilization. As their culture was unearthed, historians began to note some clues mentioning Mesopotamia among the writings in the Bible, and among Greco-roman authors as early as the 3rd century BCE. One Greek author from this early time period named Berossus even wrote 2 books about Sumer. He mentions the beginning of Sumer, or the beginning of the world for that matter. He described the Sumerians as people who were influenced by a half-fish, half-man named Oanna, who came ashore Babylonia and taught the Sumerians the essentials of civilization, such as writing, arts, law, agriculture, architecture, and many more. It is like an alien coming to visit an ancient city and teaching them everything, which is a theory that many believe until today. Historians still cannot pinpoint the origin of the Sumerians, but they were believed to have originated in India and were actually Caucasian in origin. But a clue could be the fact that Sumerians referred to themselves as Sagika, which meant black-headed people. This could help in aiding in figuring out the origin of these people due to their looks and possibly any related ancestors who look like them. Despite their mysterious origins, it isn't that hard to believe the Sumerians' accomplishments since they are known. They came up with numerous ideas that if it weren't for them, the world would probably be significantly different than the way it is now. In what way, do you ask? Well, if it weren't for them, we wouldn't have the wheel, we wouldn't have math, we would tell time differently, and even our government systems would probably not be as structured as well. Hard to believe that this all occurred thousands of years ago, since they already had such complex systems in their makeshift city-states, much like how it is today. They built canals to cultivate land for their crops and learned about the weather so they would know which kind of crops grew best during certain months. There were no stones in their fertile land, so they made bricks from the mud and were able to build great structures like the ziggurat, which was a massive stepped ancient temple seen across the Sumerian cities. basically the precursor of pyramids, except they weren't for pharaohs, but for worship. They paid homage to their gods in every way, that even the way we tell dates and time today is based on their gods. The cycles of the moon each year is 12, so they thought this is how the gods intended the number systems to be. Hence, there are 12 months in a year, and 12 hours in the morning and 12 in the afternoon. They even divided time into seconds and minutes as their base number was 60. Why 60? The answer is in the design of our bodies. If you hold your hand out in front of you, you will notice that each of your 4 fingers are divided into 3 segments. Ancient people would use their right thumb to tap each segment of the fingers, which would count up to 12. When they would reach 12, they would raise a finger on their left hand. When you have 5 fingers raised on your left hand, you had 60. Can you believe this is how people did math thousands of years ago? They even gave us the 360-degree for angle measurement, which gave rise to the invention of the wheel. They also generated codes of law and organized government systems as they arranged themselves into city-states. Based on historians, Sumerians didn't set their law in stone, but if you did break the law, there was a set punishment. For example, if you stole something, you would be punished according to what you stole. Each city-state had their own king, military, and assembly of people. But these kings were not really seen as a god in comparison to Egypt's pharaohs. They were seen as just mortals, as all men were seen as equals in these ancient civilizations. People could even move freely between city-states, since culture and religion was fluid for people in Sumer. But the greatest invention of Sumerians was what allowed us to know about their accomplishments: writing. If it weren't for the cuneiform or wedge-shaped symbols, we would be so lost in understanding the culture that ignited the progress of humanity. The cuneiform gave rise to deciphering many other key languages in later Mesopotamia civilizations, such as Akkadian and Babylonian languages. This was basically the ancient alphabet that lasted for 5,000 years. It allowed us to decipher the oldest epic in the world, the famous epic of Gilgamesh, which is about a real king of Uruk, the first capital of Sumer. Sumer would grow into numerous river city-states, which was a factor in its downfall. The population kept increasing, so demand for agriculture increased, and its size and wealth made it an attractive target to upstart rivals. From a unified civilization, each city-state was conquered bit by bit by neighboring civilizations such as the Babylonians and Assyrians. In around 2350 BCE, Sargon of the neighboring civilization Akkad would conquer all Sumerian city-states and create the first Mesopotamian Empire, the world's first empire, which would last 180 years until its timely downfall due to revolts, poor harvest, administrative incompetence, and supposedly a giant meteor strike. Nevertheless, the Sumerians were the birthplace of civilizations and empires. Their influence is amplified throughout thousands of years and continues until today. So it is important that we understand the basis of our civilization, even if it started from a bunch of nomads that no one can really trace its origins to. It is only a matter of time before we can decipher more about their roots so that we can connect the dots of ancient history. What ancient civilization would you like to learn more about? Comment down below and we might make a video on it soon. For more videos on the most amazing forgotten parts of our history, be sure to subscribe to the Intrigued Mind channel, like the video, and leave your suggestions in the comments below.